Welcome back. It has been a very long time since I have checked in, since I have made or posted a video. The reason why I have been so absent here, I have started a new part-time job on top of the one I already have, so I am increasingly very busy, so I haven't had an awful lot of time to film or create videos. That is the reason why I haven't been present. But I did notice that there are quite a few new additions to our little family here. I saw that I gained some subscribers over the last couple of months, primarily from my archives day in the life of an archives assistant video that I posted a couple months ago over the summer. So I'm happy to have you here. Thank you for watching. I like to do book videos here. I'm also going to be posting a lot about my becoming an archivist and being an archive student, so that's the intention for this channel. But today I wanted to talk to you about my favorite books of 2022. If you follow me on Instagram, and if it's okay if you don't, but if you do, you may have seen that I, every month, would choose my favorite book of the month, and I would put them in a lovely little bracket, and through that bracket system, I would figure out my favorite book of the year. So today, I'm going to go through that bracket with you. The first book in January, my favorite book, was the first volume of Naruto. Gosh, when did we start watching this? My husband and I started watching Naruto maybe like over a year ago. We watched the first series, started watching the second series, and then kind of got off of it. We're planning on returning to it soon, but then I started reading the manga, and I really enjoyed it throughout the course of 2022. I believe I read the first 5 volumes, and I do plan on continuing in the new year. Highly recommend. If you don't know the story of Naruto, I'll give you little synopses for each of the books that I can remember, because some of these are a while ago now. It's about this boy who is kind of an outcast from society. He is possessed by a 9-tailed fox spirit, and just all chaos ensues, and he becomes a ninja in training. There's lots of hijinks, especially in the beginning of this manga and the anime series, so it's just a lot of fun. It's super entertaining, and I love reading manga because they go by so quickly. I can just tear through them. And whenever I'm in a reading slump, I was in a bit of a reading slump in the beginning of the year, I believe. I really remember enjoying this. So that is for January. And then February is How Do You Live by Genzaburo Yoshino. I'm sorry, I should have looked up how to pronounce the name. But the reason why I read this is I heard that this book is going to be adapted into a movie by Studio Ghibli. I'm very excited. I love Ghibli movies. They are among my favorite movies out there. So I really enjoyed this, mostly because there's a lot of wisdom in this book. It is about a boy. I cannot remember his name since it has been so long. He is called Copper. He is 15, and he's just going throughout his life, and each chapter is sort of a situation that he goes through, and his uncle, who kind of steps in for his dad after his dad passes away, and his uncle, whenever he comes across troubles or he has an issue with a friend or something like that, his uncle helps him and gives him advice. And I believe his uncle also, yes, it says here, writes to him in a journal, sharing knowledge and offering his advice on life's big questions as Copper begins to consider what matters most. So it says here, it is a Japanese classic written for young readers. This was so good. I could totally see myself rereading this in the future. I am so excited to see this adapted into a movie, nonetheless by Ghibli. I believe it is coming out later this year in 2023, so I'm super excited about that. And I would highly recommend this book if you enjoy middle grades, if you enjoy Ghibli movies, and if you kind of like self-help books, but sometimes you think they're a little too heavy-handed, or you don't love self-help, but you think like little nuggets of wisdom are always fun. I would highly recommend. As you all probably know, or maybe you don't, I love middle grades. This was one of the best middle grades I read this year. This is very, very high up on the list. And then next, in March, I believe, just to make sure, oh no, I do not have a hard copy of my favorite book from March, but it was There's No Such Thing as an Easy Job. I loved this book. I read it for the Books Unbound book club that they have. I believe it's quarterly or something like that. I read this and I was so deeply engrossed in the storytelling of this book. It is about a young woman, I also forget her name, who is just, she's really burned out by her chosen career, and each part of the book is basically her trying a new job on for size, and each job is a little peculiar. As she goes through each of these jobs, she wants to find a job where she doesn't have to do anything. She wants to have a job that's just kind of mindless, but she kind of creates or finds situations in each job where she has to like solve something or figure something out that's kind of funny that's going on. So it was just so entertaining. Each job was very unique. Like the first job that she's in is basically a surveillance job where she has to watch the actions of a writer or somebody, I believe, who's suspected of possibly committing a crime, and just surveilling him and seeing what he does and reporting back if something funny goes on. There's an element to this book that really made me feel like there might be some sort of magical realism element to it. There never really came a point where that came in, but it just had this feeling where there was something else going on. That was just so entertaining. I highly recommend it if you enjoy Japanese translated novels. If you liked Convenience Store Woman, I really think you would like this book. That was for March. And then for April, I read Almond by Won Pyun-son, and I believe I've talked about this before on this channel, so I will try to be brief, but this book was so incredibly amazing. It is about a young boy, or into being a teenager, and he was born with a brain condition called alexithymia, which makes it hard for him to feel emotions like fear or anger. So this book was so interesting because I had never known about this condition before, and I really learned a lot through this book. I feel like the author also explored the way that we feel feelings in ways that aren't just emotional. The author really dove into the way that emotions feel in our bodies and how we feel that way, and it was such an interesting exploration of emotion, but also it was a fantastic Bildungsroman. It really, I feel like the main character in this book grew so much, and it was just such a treat and a pleasure to read. Every month since I have thought about this book, I've really felt the urge to reread it again. I would love to annotate this book at some point, maybe this year, maybe in the future. I have a lot of books I want to read this year, but this was just such an absolute treat, and I would highly, highly recommend it. So that is Almond. For May, I read A Man Called Ove by Frederick Bachman. This was just so good. This was my first read by Frederick Bachman. I had heard nothing but good things about this author. I absolutely love this story, and it was actually Carolyn Marie Reeds who convinced me to read this book. I was watching one of her videos, and she was just going on and on about Frederick Bachman, and I was like, okay, I have to pick one of his books and give it a shot. And I was not disappointed. This book was so entertaining, but also so sad. I feel like Frederick Bachman was able to balance the different elements of Ova's story, where it goes back into his past and talks about his childhood, his young adulthood, his relationship with his wife, who he loves so much, who has since passed away in the present of this story. And it goes into the sadness of his past, but it also talks about the love that he experienced with his wife and his wonderful relationship with her. It also kind of dives into Ova's relationship, or growing relationship and friendship, with his new neighbors. That relationship is so cute. Each and every character is so quirky and interesting, and it was just such a pleasure to read. It really convinced me to read more Frederick Bachman this year. I really want to read another one of his novels this year. Maybe Anxious People. I'm really excited about that one. Yes, that is A Man Called Ova. Next, in June, I read Beach Read, which is another book I don't currently have at the moment. My dad borrowed it, and I texted him when I was collecting the books for this video. I was like, do you have my copy of Beach Read? I can't find it. Because I don't have it in front of me, I don't fully remember the storyline, which is so embarrassing. The next book on this list for July is also an Emily Henry book. It is Book Lovers, and both of these books were so much fun for the summertime. They were perfect. They were exactly what I wanted for the summer months, just to read on the beach and relax and enjoy a fun story. And for Beach Read, I believe, here, let me process of elimination. Beach Read. It is a romance about two people who have previously known each other, I think like in their master's degrees or undergraduate degrees. They are two writers who are working on novels that just aren't really coming along, and they kind of strike up a deal because they're neighbors and they're kind of in a forced proximity. That's a little bit of a trope that's in this book, I believe, kind of. And they strike up a deal where they switch genres, basically, where one writer is like a romance writer, I believe, the main girl, and the romantic lead, he is basically a contemporary fiction writer or something like that, where he deals with more hard-hitting topics, and they flip-flop genres, and they kind of learn to write in that genre, but mainly it is a romance. It was very enjoyable, entirely because Emily Henry's writing, at least for me, is so enjoyable. It is so quick for me to read. It is exactly what I need during the summer, and it's the same for my read in the next month, Book Lovers. This is also a romance where this Nora is the main character in this book. I'm so bad at remembering main character names. Anyway, she is dragged to a small town, Sunshine Falls in North Carolina, by her sister for like a girls' trip. She comes across somebody who she has worked with previously that she didn't get along with very well. And of course, there is a romance that ensues. Loved this as well, exactly what I wanted in the summertime. I have not yet read People We Meet on Vacation, and I'm planning on reading that maybe this year, but Emily Henry is also coming out with a book called Happy Place, and I'm so excited to read that as well. So I'm definitely reading more Emily Henry this year. So that is all I will say about those two books, because obviously I'm getting the plots mixed up. Okay, for my favorite read for August, which was actually my book of the month pick in June. It is The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. This was so fun. This is a fantasy. It was so engrossing. The story in this just completely caught me. The main character, Luli, is a midnight merchant, a criminal who, with the help of her djinn bodyguard, hunts and sells illegal magic. When she saves the life of a cowardly prince, she draws the attention of his powerful father, the Sultan, who blackmails her into finding an ancient lamp that has the power to revive the barren land at the cost of sacrificing all djinn. So this book was so entertaining. I love books that have a quest or have some sort of heist that has to happen, and this was just the perfect combination of both. There is so much that happens in this book where that beginning synopsis doesn't even begin to cover what really goes down in this book. There are so many plot twists. There are so many things that happen with the characters, because this is a multiple POV novel. There is just so much that goes on. I don't want to go too deep into it because I'm afraid I would spoil something. But this is going to be a series, maybe a trilogy. I can't quite remember. I believe the second book is coming out this year. Dear God, I hope so. If I have to wait another year, I'm going to be really sad. Honestly, it had been a while since I had gotten into a fantasy series. I think all the books I've mentioned so far that I read previously in the year are not fantasy. This was the first book that got me back into fantasy this year. I took a big break, but I'm back with this one. And yeah, if you like fantasy, I implore you, you must read this book. Please do. I think you will really enjoy it. I cannot wait to read more of Chelsea Abdullah's books. I think that she is swiftly becoming one of those authors where I will just read anything and everything that they write. In September, which was a partial reread, I believe, it is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell, and I read a couple books by Rainbow Rowell this year. She is one of my favorite young adult authors from when I was a teenager. I believe I read the first part of this book, like the first half, when I was in high school, and I either put it down or I completely forgot about the ending of this book, but I don't remember liking it as much as I liked it when I reread it this year. This was so much fun. This is basically about the first year of college for Kath, who is a fan fiction writer for Simon Snow, which, if you're also a fan of Rainbow Rowell like myself, you will be familiar with Simon Snow because of the Carry On series. I believe this is the book that spurred on that series. It's so nostalgic for me. And also because it was published in, let me look for the copyright date. Because it was published in 2013 and it's set in literally 2011. Oh no, that's when I was in high school. It was just so nostalgic for me. It just it really took me out of the present time and just thrust me back in time. It's basically about Kath's first year in college, learning how to navigate being an undergraduate student, learning how to make friends, but also there is a romance component. The romance in this book is so cute. I just loved it so much. It was so much fun to read. And I feel like a lot of these books that I picked for my favorite books of the month, I picked because I had a good time reading them, because I just had so much fun, and this is definitely the case with this book. So there's also a manga series that is out based on this book, and I believe the first two are out. I have them. I have not read them yet. I was planning on reading them before the end of the year, and it did not happen, so maybe I'll kind of sit on those for a while. When I get the urge to reread this book, maybe I'll just read those instead. But that is Fangirl. October, the book that I picked is The Kiss Curse by Erin Sterling, and oh my gosh, this is a romance. It is so much fun. I will say it has smut scenes in it, so if that's not your thing, I don't think you would like this, but this was so much fun, so funny. Erin Sterling, I also reread The Ex-Hex in October just for the spooky season vibes, because this series, it is now a series, I believe there is a third book coming out at some point, hopefully this year. Again, if it is, that would be amazing. It's perfect for spooky season. It sets the tone. It is set in a town called Graves Glen, which is basically Halloween Town. It is such a vibe. In each book in this series, it changes perspective. So in the Ex-Hex, it was one romantic lead, and in this one, it is her cousin, who is Gwen Jones. And Gwen is so sassy, so funny. I loved her character. I really enjoyed this book a little bit more than the X-Hex, I believe. I believe that that's a hard choice, but this just had so much going on. I feel like there was so much intrigue. There was like a mystery to solve here, and this one really hooked me. I really wanted to know what happened at the end, so highly recommend this. Next spooky season, I will definitely be rereading these again next year, especially if there is a new addition to this series, hopefully. So yes, that is the Kiss Curse for November, which is a little unfair because this is one of my all-time favorite novels ever. It is the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society by Mary Ann Schaefer and Annie Barrows. This book is so good. I cannot stress to you enough how much I think you should read this book. I don't care if you don't like historical fiction, because this is set just after World War II. I don't care. I don't care. You need to read this because it is so funny. It covers such hard-hitting topics related to World War II, but it's not like a war novel, which I know is definitely an acquired taste. It is an epistolary novel, so it's written in letters. Because it is an epistolary novel, it changes perspectives. It's letters written by a bunch of different people, and it is just so much fun. I'm going to read to you the little synopsis here. January 1946, writer Juliet Ashton receives a letter from a stranger, a founding member of the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. And so begins a remarkable tale of the island of Guernsey during the German occupation and of a society as extraordinary as its name. So I think you should read this book if you are a human being, if you really like books that balance humor and serious topics in a way that is really delicate and really well done. I think you would also like this book if you like books about books, because the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society are basically a book club, so it talks a lot about classic authors. It's so just heartwarming. It's so cozy. It definitely has an element of coziness to it. Really hope that I've convinced you to pick this up, because I really don't think you'll be sorry. It's such a quick read too, look at that. You can read this in a day. I believe in you. So that's my favorite book from November. And the last one, I was torn between this book, which is The Purple Palace and Other Poems by Shayna Clee, and an honorable mention goes out to Hercule Poirot's Christmas by Agatha Christie, which was also so phenomenal. But I really think I have to pick this one because I think this book is one of my new favorite poetry collections. If you know Shayna Clee, if you have watched her YouTube channel, she is the creator of The Purple Palace. She does awesome travel vlogs and art content because she is an artist. She is so cool, so much fun. She has such a cool personality, and her poems are all just so interesting and thought-provoking. And she also incorporates some of her own art throughout the collection. So the art, just take a look at this. Look at just the drawings that she has incorporated into this book. So cool, so much fun. This was actually, it's so funny that this is what I chose to be my favorite book of the month, because at the end of December, I realized that I was close enough to reading 100 books for the year. And I was like, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna gun it. I'm gonna try to read as many books as humanly possible. Which, you know, all you other readers out there who have done that before, when you're trying to cram books, you're listening to short audiobooks and reading graphic novels. And I picked up this book because I had been meaning to read it for a while, and I'd read little bits and pieces. I brought it to the beach last year, so I'd read bits and pieces, but I hadn't read like the whole thing. So I figured this is kind of good. I'll finish a book I've been meaning to finish for a while, and it's super short. It's like 100... not even, it's like 90 pages. So I read this and I was like, this book is so phenomenal. I loved it so much. I'll link Shayna's channel, The Purple Palace, below, because I just think everybody should watch her videos. They're so much fun. And I think you should also pick up this book. I believe it is self-published. It is on Amazon. That is that. Those are all the books that I picked for my favorite books of the month in 2022. So going through the bracket, I decided what my overall favorite book of the year would be, and I will show you my 2 finalists, and then I will show you what I picked. So in the latter half of the bracket, in the last 6 months of the year, I decided that my favorite book from the last 6 months of the year are the Guernsey Potato, it's one of my favorite books and I still mess up the title. The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society, which may not be fair because I literally have read this a few times and I probably shouldn't pick this, but it's just such an enjoyable read. It was so much fun. I also have, for the first half of the year, Almond. So I think between these two books, I have to pick Almond. This book just really had such an impact on me. I've thought about it so many times throughout the year since I read it pretty early on into the year in April. And I just think about this book every day. I think I said before I want to annotate it. I really want to reread it at some point. I think I've recommended this book to a handful of people, which also speaks volumes, because whenever I kind of latch onto a book to recommend to people, it's like everybody gets a recommendation for this book. Everybody should read this book. You need to read this book too, which you should. So yes, I think this is my favorite book of the year. Please read it. It is such a fantastic, fantastic novel, and I can't express to you enough how much I love this book. So maybe in the future too, I should make a video about annotating this book as well. I've seen videos about annotating books before and they're so much fun, so maybe that's on the horizon at some point this year. Almond was my favorite book of the year. That is the last word of this video. Thank you for being patient, as it took me a couple months to get back into the swing of making videos. I am currently on break from school, but once I get back into my classes for my graduate program, all bets kind of go out the window, but I still want to try to make more videos this year because I just had such a fun time creating YouTube videos in 2022. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. If you enjoyed, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I would love to hear about your favorite books of 2022. You can give me one title, give me a list. You can even tell me the ones you didn't like, because I certainly had those too. So yes, please tell me down in the comments below. But thank you for watching. I hope you have a great night. Bye.